Hello, everyone, and welcome to a late night episode here on the channel. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe, and today is officially the last episode for the month of August. And what better way to end this incredible month than having a returning guest on the show? Now, if you remember this guest, she was on my Historians Lounge season 1 lineup, which was her first debut on the channel, where we talked about young Abraham Lincoln. She's an incredible historian, incredible artist. She has her own newsletter, which is all about empowerment and building one's brand. She is an incredible person and making her second appearance on the channel. Let's give a huge round of applause to my good friend, Angelina Kaul. Angelina, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Hey, Gabriel, thank you so much for having me back. It is an incredible honor to be here. Thank you so much, my friend.
You're welcome. So, before we dive into this interview, would you like to share with the viewers and listeners what you've been up to since the last time you were on the show, which was a year ago?
Yes, can you believe that? My gosh, it's been that long already. Um, yeah, so the last time when I was on the show, we were talking about my work that at that point I was working on my Abraham Lincoln bio. I was working on the research part of it and the writing and whatnot. So we sort of discussed that at length. And since then, my my direction has sort of changed a little bit. I was personally going through a lot of challenges as I was
Mm,
doing my research. So I was feeling a lot of pressure. Just trying to work. You're a writer yourself. You know how how that
yes.
trying to make the time to do your work, do the research, and also just, everyday life and things happening. And so, as I was working on Lincoln, one of the things that fascinates, and one of the reasons I'm a biographer and a historian, is because I'm always fascinated with people, especially when they are, especially, let's say, the famous historical figures before they became famous, right? So
Mm,
while there's a plethora of books on Lincoln and his presidency, and even some, and I may have mentioned this in your last interview, even some of his younger years in Springfield, Illinois, where he began his political career, I was more interested in his Indiana years because I
right.
believe that, those were his formative years. And there was a lot of things that he learned there that he then built up on to become what he became. So I was more fascinated with his time then as a young man, as a child, and what he went through. And as I was working on that and I was going through my own challenges personally, what ended up happening is that I started looking deeper into, the effects of certain things that happened to him, which are
Right.
really tragic. For example, his baby brother dying,
Mm-hmm.
mother dying, just like all of the trauma that he suffered through from that, moving in the Midwest winter, from Kentucky to Indiana, and how he lived that first year when he was here in that cold. They moved in the middle of December, so while
Right.
everyone was celebrating Christmas or preparing to do that, here they are crossing the great Ohio River from Kentucky to Indiana. So I was just, I was working on my book. And as I was doing that, and the more I researched, I was just thinking to myself, my gosh, this is a small child. This is like a young, 7, 8 year old kid who's going through all these different things. And, we as adults, when we are relocating or we are going through a tragedy like a death in the family, or,
Mm-hmm.
imagine how it affects us and how devastated it is. So now try to imagine that for a young child. And
Right.
interestingly enough, my biography of Colonel William Stephen Hamilton, one of the sons of Alexander Hamilton, you know, he, he also went through a similar incident with his father, who was shot and killed in the duel with Aaron Burr.
Right.
So, William was there at his father's deathbed. So, you can just kind of imagine what is going through, the people that are there seeing this happen right in front of them, but especially this child who's standing there to
Right.
see his father expire, so a lot of times we tend to think, well, it's just a little kid. A lot of times we don't really pay attention to that. But what I've learned through this past year of really diving deeply into psychology and learning about attachment theory and learning about trauma and learning about, how we as human beings are affected, especially in our childhood, and the trauma and the things, whether good or bad, that we experience as children is what we carry through into our adulthood. And a lot of times we behave in certain ways without even realizing that it's coming from a totally different place. And it's based on trauma that we suffered, eons ago. So
Right.
all of this started really fascinating me. And as I said, I was going through my own personal challenges. So I started diving deeper into this, and I got really immersed in in the subject and learning and understanding. And then I decided that, to share the information that I was discovering as I was going through my own journey of personal growth. Um, and I decided to share that in my writings. You mentioned my newsletter earlier. So I started
Hmm.
pouring that on my blog, on my website, and also just, on basically all social media, everywhere I could, to share, because I wanted to do something that I don't feel I had. I just happened to, like, stumble upon this as I was trying to do research for my subject. And
Right.
there's so many people out there, who have gone through a lot in their life, but we're just, we live in a time where we just kind of go from one day to the next, and just trying to, like, catch up with the work we have to do, the life we have to live, things we have to take care of, so we don't really ever get a chance to sit down and really think about, okay, what happened to me? Why do I behave this way? Why am I so reactive rather than responsive when somebody does something? So, I'm thankful to Lincoln for kind of sort of um, sending me on that road. But of
Right.
course, like I said, some of the things that I discovered even about myself, that it was almost like, uh, I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is the reason I behave this way, or this is the reason why I talk this way, or do this, or So it was really enlightening. And the more
Nice.
that I have, yeah, thanks. The more I have gone down this lane, I honestly can say that I've had um, a lot of information that I've learned from, that I have come to better understand myself, and what my shortcomings were, or what my strengths were. Really having a good understanding about myself, having a self-awareness, having sort of an understanding, and in the process raising my own self-respect and self-worth and self-value. So, you can't go wrong with having those things, right? And
Right.
just coming to understand that there's so many things that we were taught throughout our lives, that, oh, this is the way to do this, or this is what is right, or this is what is wrong. And you just kind of take that on, whether it's through your parents, or authority figures, or whatever the case may be, schooling, whatever. You just, like, accept it, as like, the golden rule that you must follow, and you don't really take the moment to think for yourself. Wait a second, is this really the only way, or is this the right way? You just kind of go along. So that's how we have so many traditions all over the world, and so many things, customs, that people just carry on without really looking at, okay, is this really right for me? As opposed to, yeah, this is what I should do because I'm told that I need to do this. So it's just been a really, really interesting and educational and kind of a journey and learning so many things and learning so much more about myself that I wanted to share with people, which is what I've been working on for this past year since you and I talked the last time.
Wow, you definitely have been busy, and it definitely
Yeah.
shows in your newsletter, which I am subscribed to. I think I subscribed to it when we first met a year ago. And honestly, from your research of not just Abraham Lincoln, but also George Washington and another individual you were also researching at the time, his name escapes me, but you were very, very diligent, very hardworking, and it clearly shows. So now let's actually talk about that. So let's actually go back in time, Angelina. So for you growing up, how did sort of like history, writing, how did that come about for you growing up?
Okay, so Gabriel, as you know, I'm originally from India and I grew up
Mm-hmm.
in India for, I would say the first 10 to 11 years of my life. Don't ask me how old I'm now. But I am an American because I've been here in America most of my life.
Mm,
But when I was growing up in India, the reason I'm mentioning that is because my love for history, civics, and writing, English literature in particular, all of those things began in like at a very young age,
mm,
and not to mention the art. That's also a big part of me. So art history writing these things have been with me since the very beginning. I wrote my first book, uh which was a salute to Nancy Drew. I
right.
actually the story, created the illustrations, and sewed this book together, and that was my first book at age 10, which I'm very proud of. But unfortunately I lost it when I was coming over here,
Oh.
which is very unfortunate. Yes. But so it's like it's in my blood. I've been doing it from ever since I know. And I can't imagine myself doing anything else other than what I'm doing right now, which is another thing that I want to kind of, put it back with what I was saying just a few minutes ago. I'm going to just tack that in there, is that one of the things that I realized through this journey of self awareness is that I was spending so much time trying to do so many different things, throughout my life. Um, and it took a long time for me to get to this point. And it was
Mm,
not an easy journey. And even now, it's not, you know that, Gabriel. It's like you're trying to try different things. You're trying to figure out
right.
what works, what doesn't work. It's not like this, oh, okay, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to know exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. It's a lot of trial and error before you get to the point where you say, okay, yes, this is me and this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to let anything get in the way of that. It doesn't matter if I only have one follower on social media. It doesn't matter if I don't have any publisher coming after me for a book, or an editor asking me to write. So it really doesn't matter. So I've come up to this point where it's like my work is my work and it is meaningful to me. It is giving me fulfillment. I believe that I was created to do the work that I'm doing right now, but it took me a while to get to this point. And that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because I want to encourage people that are kind of caught up in the 9 to 5, or doing jobs that they hate, or just settling down for things in their lives, you
Mm,
know just because, okay, this is the thing, this is the only job I could get, or this is the thing my father told me to do, or this is the thing my mom wanted me to be. It's like I'm always encouraging people to go back to the moment in your childhood, because I know we've all done that when we were kids. We wanted to be superheroes, or we wanted to be an artist, or we all had those dreams that we wanted to do something. But somehow, as we started growing up, and the challenges of life, things hit us, that vision that we had for ourselves, it just kind of eroded. It just like disappeared. And there are a lot of people who are now sitting, just really regretting not really pursuing that passion that they had, and just kind of
mm-hmm.
giving into, okay, well, I gotta earn a living, I gotta make the paycheck, and again, I understand I have bills to pay as well, so it's not like I'm sitting in the lap of luxury or anything like that. So I totally understand that. But I think what I want to encourage people is that, we really need to dig. This is where the self-awareness comes in. We need to figure out what is it that we're meant to do. And that used to be one of my big questions. It was like, what does it mean when they say, what is the purpose of your life? And I would always ask
Right.
myself, what is the purpose of my life? What am I supposed to be doing? And again, it took a long way to get to this point. And by no means, I believe I'm a lifelong learner. So by no means do I know everything. But whatever I know, I want to share that so that people can get excited and encouraged and inspired to do the things they're actually meant to do, not just the things that they're settling to do. Because, and again, I don't say this, with, oh, well, you can just go out there, quit your job, and do whatever you want. It's not like that. But you can set a plan for yourself that you can, go step by step and reach that point where you want to be with your dream, with your vision, with what you wanted to do. It's not easy. I mean, I've had plenty of, oodle doodles at one point, or those peanut butter sandwiches or whatever at one point. I can't eat those things anymore. But so it's not an easy road for everyone, but
No.
it is, if it's in your heart, if it's your passion, then I want to encourage people to go for that rather than suppress it, because there's so much talent out there, and so much of it is hidden because people just kind of sit on it, or they let it go because they're afraid to go out there and pursue it, or there's always some reason why they can't. You can find a way to make something happen for yourself if you really really want to do it, but it's going to require commitment, it's going to require hard work, it's not going to come easy for most of us, but it can be done, you know it can be done. So that is the thing that I want to challenge people to do, is start really becoming self-aware of, we all only have one life, right? I mean,
Mhm.
how do you want to live it? And if you've already lived half of your life doing the thing that you hate, then maybe it's time for you to start doing the thing that you love. It's high time for that. So that's how I'm pursuing my passion and my vision, and I'm hoping to encourage people along the way to do the same.
Nice. And she touched on a lot of stuff that we'll actually be getting to the later half of the interview, which is the business side of being an historian, an independent historian, or freelance historian. So now let's actually fast forward a little bit, Angelina. So, in addition to being an historian and a biographer, you're also an artist as well, from the artwork that I've seen on your profile page on LinkedIn, which is incredible. So, when you began this journey in the beginning, initially, what was sort of the need you want to satisfy in terms of your writing abilities? And what was sort of like the promise you're making to people who come across your work?
Okay, so as you know, I have written books, I have articles, and you know, I have magazine articles that range in, different. So I have some magazines articles that I've written that are dealing with home decor. I love that. I love, that's under the umbrella of my business, because if you go on my website, you can find all that information out. But basically, anything that's, I want to work with things that are um, going to help people to feel relaxed,
Mm,
inspired, encouraged, feel comfortable, feel like, so a lot of the work I do, whether it's my art, whether it's my handmade journals, whether it is my writings or whatever, it's very, it's different things, but it's all pulled together by history, right? Everything is
mm,
kind of history related. Even my handmade journals, they're like vintage handmade journals, because I'll use fabric and materials and paper and what that it does, a mix of contemporary and vintage pieces because I'm
Right.
trying to preserve that history that's still there. So it's I try to incorporate everything that I'm doing with that history as the foundation, because that's such a big part of what I love, and I want that to be always there. And that's the same with my writing. Even if I'm writing for um, some of the magazines or whatever, I try to. I did one. Atomic Ranch is one of the magazines that I've written for before, and my editor, she was so sweet. She gave me a. I think I was bugging her so much that she finally gave me a project to work on, and it was on one of the designers, a Danish designer. So I did like a mini bio of him, and I love those. I love writing biographies because, again, I'm always interested in people and what makes them tick, where do they come from, what's
Right.
going on with them, the human condition, all of that. It's such a huge part of what I do. So those types of things are all there, and they're very interesting. But all of the work that I do, I always have some bits of history in there because that's a big part
Mm.
of what I do.
Nice. And what was the initial reaction from friends and family, as well as people seeing your work for the first time? Was it positive? Was it negative? Or was it mixed initially?
So, Gabriel, you do this stuff too. So, you know what I'm going to say. I try not to. I mean, it's really incredible when you have family members that'll tell you, "Oh, your work is so beautiful. Oh, this writing is just awesome." But I try not to focus too much on that because that's family.
Mm,
Now,
right.
it's like if you're a parent and you have a 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid coming with a little stick figure to you, you're gonna say, "This is absolutely beautiful." It's it passes Da Vinci's work, right? Because
Right.
you're talking. So while I appreciate my family's support and encouragement, I don't like to put too much focus on that. I just create what is in my heart. And for that matter, I would say the same thing with the audience. I create things, whatever it is, because it's in my heart to do so.
Right.
That's what I'm working on. And yes, it would be nice to have a lot of people wanting to buy my things and support me and all that. But this, again, now more than ever, I'm realizing why this is with me. And again, going back to the whole self-awareness thing, is that when you know who you are and you are completely uh not to sound cliche, but like when you're completely one with yourself, you're not going to be seeking outside validation, right?
Mm,
So you're producing your if you're producing this episode, you're producing it because there's something you saw in me that you want to feature in your show, and you feel good about that, right? Because aside from the fact that we're friends, you like my work and you want to share it with your audience, so you're producing this episode. But you're not looking for an outside person to come in and say, "Oh, Gabriel, this is a fantastic show," or, "Gabriel, the show was just totally flat. What were you thinking?"
right.
Right? So that's where, and again, it took a long time to get here, but I'm here, and that's what I encourage in other people. Don't go seeking outside validation. Really get to know who you are and what you're passionate about, and what is it, the kind of work that you want to do, and then just do it. Just do it. Don't wait around for somebody to come and tell you, "Hey, this is great, so continue," or, "Hey, I've had my share of people who have said that to me when I first started painting portraits just in my town. One of the established artists basically told me, "Oh, your work is never going to make it out of here." In the meantime, while she was saying that to me, one of my pieces was hanging in a gallery in North Carolina, right? So it's like I'm in Indiana. So
Right.
the point is that, I could have taken her, what she may have thought was a critique, and I can talk about that, what I think about critiques and critics, but I could have taken that and just sat down and said, "Oh, forget it. She didn't like it. She didn't like it. Nobody will like it. I'm still stupid. I can't do this. I don't know how to paint. What am I thinking?" It would have been like a domino effect after that, one thing after, because we all tend to, most of us, I should say, tend to do the overthinking game, right? We're
Right.
constantly thinking, and unfortunately, we're never overthinking the positive. It's always the negative, right? Where nobody ever sits there. Maybe there are some people who are really, on that some other level, but most of us, when we're overthinking, it's always negative. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Why am I doing this? What am I thinking? Is ever going to like my stuff? All these, we never sit there and say, hey, this is pretty good. I can do this. I know how to do this. I know how to teach this. I know how to talk about this. I know what I'm doing. We hardly ever do that. There's not a, because that's what overthinking is.
Right.
So I had some people, had maybe even now, I don't know, no one's reached out that way, but I'm sure there are people who don't like my work, who don't like who I am, who don't like what I do for one reason or another. But as I said earlier, I only have one life. And, with me, this is so much true because I literally have only like, my life is there are so many challenges. Like, I've got physical issues, health issues that I have to, I could literally drop dead tomorrow. So with that being said, how much of my time am I going to waste thinking about what other people are thinking about my work and whatnot, as opposed to actually being productive and producing something, whether it's good or bad. That's the way I think, because if you are constantly thinking about seeking that outside validation, you will not get anywhere. You're constantly going to be telling yourself you're not worthy, but you are worthy. You are
Right.
worthy. In each one of us, there's something that is creative. And I say this, I help people who are creators. What I mean by that is not just people like me, who are dabbling in art. Well, not dabbling, but who are working with art or writing, or people like you, you're a writer and we're creative people, right? But when I
Right.
say creative, I mean creators of, they're people who are working in science that I would consider creators, because they're actually doing something that's creative, right? Einstein, what did he say? He was like the mega scientist superstar you can think of, researcher, right? He said that, one of his famous quotes, at least for me, is that he said, the A to Z will carry, and I'm paraphrasing, the A to Z will carry you so far. It's the imagination that'll take you further, right? And if you look at any of his writings, you'll notice he's constantly encouraging the creativity, constantly. He never puts that down. He's encouraging the imagination. He's encouraging the creativity. He's encouraging. So what does that mean? That means in each one of us, we have the capacity to create. I may have a capacity to create a portrait. You may have the capacity to create a writing, but, scientist has a capacity to create something too. So that's why. And I have worked with people who are not, the traditional way of what you would say creators. I have clients I've worked with who are not that, but yet I was able to pull that out of them, and they're just like shocked sometimes. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize. Yes, you're right. I am creative." So I feel we all have that in us. It goes back to being self-aware. When you become self-aware, then you will notice things about yourself, because you're going to be in tune with yourself, right? As opposed to just, some of the things you might not even be aware of, because you've never even thought about it that way, because you've just been, focused on living and working in a certain way, and that's where your mind is set. But when you open up your mind and you open up your heart, there's all kinds of creativity that can flow out of you. So yeah, going back to your question, yes, definitely I've had naysayers in the very beginning. And I think if I'd listened to them, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. So I just said, no, that's okay. That's your opinion, fine, but I'm going to keep going on. And that's, you have to have that attitude, right? I mean, uh, you can't just allow other people and their opinions, because at the end of the day, that is what it is, right? It's their opinion. It's their
Right.
opinion of your work. One person could say they don't like it, but you could have 10 people who love it. So why would you put so much emphasis on the one person who didn't like it, right? And that's the way you have to look at it. You have to look at it that way.
Definitely, 100%. And you kind of already answered the next question I was going to ask you.
Okay.
So I think now, I think it's a perfect segue to jump into the business side of the interview, which I'm really eager to hear your thoughts on. So here's the first business question, which I'm going to try to word it as best as I can. So, as I'm sure you definitely will agree, Angelina, being an independent creator, be it historian, biographer, artist, whatever, it's not easy because we're constantly trying to build our brand. So when you started, Anthony, as an independent creator, biographer, historian, and artist, how has your understanding of the business changed from when you first started to now?
That's a great question, Gabriel. Honestly, when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing. And I am an entrepreneur. I have a couple of different things going on, and that's just been a long journey learning things. It's a whole thing of trial and error. That's what it is. And
Right.
I have never really had anyone supporting my endeavors, whether it's financially or otherwise. I mean, let me say this: I've definitely had people who have given me opportunities to come and show my work, for example, or to participate in something. In that regards, yes, I've definitely had that. But I'm talking about, I've had no angel investors or, any
Mm,
coming and saying, oh, here, yeah, you just tell us what you want to do and we'll just supply whatever you need. I'm a one woman show. I was going to say one
right.
man show. I'm a one woman show running multiple businesses. And again, if you just take what you're doing, for example, there's the writing and the research that you do for your books, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you can call yourself a writer, but we both know there's so much more that you're doing than that, that's behind the scenes that nobody's even looking at. For example, again, you're making this episode. I know what you're doing. I know exactly, because I mean, I have a YouTube channel too, and even though I'm not doing the same kind of things you're doing, nonetheless, I know that for you to actually get a guest on, do the interview, do the editing, make sure everything is working,
Yes.
that's what you're like. You're doing several things that people actually have for jobs that they get paid for, right? You're doing your social media. You could be a social media manager. You're doing your editing. You could be an edit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're doing multiple things all at the same time, and it is not everyone's cup of tea.
No.
So, yeah, what I will say, when I first started, my focus was on art. And when I was doing my art, I wasn't really even, I didn't, I was just painting because that's what I love to do, right? There was no like, oh, I'm going to have this, I was just painting. I put in some of my paintings in several different shows to see what was going to happen, sold some things here and there. And then it was more like a hobby kind of a thing at that point, but I was also at the same time trying to study and pass college and do my life. um,
Right.
so it was a long lengthy process, but I learned a lot along the way. And unfortunately, I see this sometimes, like if you go on YouTube, for example, the moment you get in there and you put on a video you want to watch, you'll see all these ads coming up, and they'll say, "Oh, make $30,000 in 1 minute." Those crazy ads they're telling you, and a lot of people will get sucked into that. I'm sorry for using that word, but like because everybody wants to make some money. But what I always tell, and I have worked with people, unfortunately, who were targeted by those types of groups and whatnot, and ended up losing quite a bit of money. And so what I say is that anytime you're getting this get rich quick schemes, you really need to be careful, because you need to test the waters. And one of the most important things I've realized, and I always try to tell people, is that don't think that you're going to become a superstar overnight. Okay,
Right.
most of us have to. You have to put in the hours, you have to put in the time, you have to put the blood and sweat, you have to do that. And that is not such a bad thing, especially if you're working everything by yourself, because it gives you that experience, it gives you the knowledge, it you learn through trial and error, so that you finally do become that expert, and you do know what you're doing, and you can share that information. But a lot of people don't have that patience. They don't want to, dive too far deep into it. But unfortunately, that is not, whenever you hear that, okay, just work 3 weeks and then you're on the top of your game, that's a rarity. At least I haven't seen it in my lifetime. When
Right.
I'm talking to other entrepreneurs or artists or whatever, they're hardworking people. None of them have sat there and said they were an overnight success. And this too. So it's
Hmm.
hard work, grueling work. But if it's your passion, then you should be okay with that, because it's not work. You're working, but you're working towards something because you're passionate about it, rather than clocking in and clocking out somewhere where you just hate going there. I also know people and I've been one of those people where it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I can't do this. When you can, here's the checkpoint. If you can't get up in the morning and get out of your bed ready to work because you're excited, then you really need to take a look at yourself and what you're doing and why are you doing it. Because if you're miserable, barely rolling out of bed, you know, and you're just dragging all day long, you're just like, that is not the way to live. That is not the way to live. Not only is it bad mentally, but emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever. We're meant to be more than just a money making machine. You know.
Definitely. Definitely. And again, you touched on something and kind of answered it, which was my last question of the business side of the interview, but you answered it like perfectly, which is, as historians and independent creators, I've always said that there's almost like these two paths: to be something or to be known as something. And that could be an author, historian, artist, whatever. And to be something is like an individual dedicated to the craft of that, whether it's an historian, being an artist, being an author, where capital is not really the main the main uh, drive, but it's nice to earn. To be known as, let's say, an historian, author, artist, whatever, is an individual dedicated to the art of marketing, building one's brand, showcasing their work, etc. Now, both paths have their own um, trials and obstacles, and they have to go through the fires and the flames, little Dragon Force reference. But I definitely feel for first time entrepreneurs starting this journey or starting their own journey, the path of to be known as something is very, very enticing. And I think you definitely agree, Angelina, that a lot of people get suckered into that, and their long term goals don't really plan out because they weren't realistic. And that, of course, goes to, let's say, being an author or writer. What exactly was their plan? Who are they writing for? Do they know their voice as an author? Who is their readership, etc.? So now let's actually turn onto that. So for you, Angelina, when you began writing biographies about individuals before they became famous, did you have an idea of who your audience was? And as a follow up to that, who would you say your readership is? Now, the reason I bring this up is that, as authors and writers, we really have to consider who is reading it. Yes, we can write for a specific audience in mind, but ultimately, who is going to read our work? There have been books, magazine articles, blogs, whatever, that have been marketed to a specific group, but upon further revision and inspection, you realize it's kind of in the other direction. So for you, Antina, just to reiterate, do you have a good idea of who your audience is for your biographies? And do you have a good idea of your readership for your biographies?
Okay, Gabriel, that's a wonderful question. I will start by saying this. I have spent so much time studying marketing, okay,
Hmm.
and not to mention the experience of marketing and sales and whatnot. So I will start by saying this. No matter what your business, whatever, because you're asking me for first time entrepreneurs who are just starting out, whatever your business, whether you're selling a broomstick or if you're selling a portrait of some famous figure, whatever it is, you have to, I would say, aside from the product that you create, whatever it is, the number one thing that you need to know is you need to know how to market it.
Yes.
So beyond your, oh, I need to go buy this fancy printer or this computer or whatever, if you don't know how to market your product, you're not going to succeed. You need
Right.
to know how to market your product, how to market yourself, what is marketing all about. I mean, you really, really need to study it. And I took a good, I would say 2 years. This is beyond college and stuff. Just like, and I will tell you this, Gabriel, I think you know this because I read one of your books. I got back to you, I think, hopefully very fast, but I'm a voracious reader and I
Yes.
can like a 500-page book in no time, okay? If I'm not disturbed and if my mind is clear and nobody's like coming to me and bothering me, I could probably finish that in a day. No problem. Especially if it's a really, really good book. No problem. So, like, if somebody asks me, how many books have you read? I honestly, I used to keep a list, but I stopped because it was just like, I would lose it. Another thing with me is, while I use my phone and I use the computer, and, that I'm technologically savvy to a certain extent, I will say, but I
Right.
always love to do the old fashioned handwriting, in just paper and pen. I love that. So I would create these lists just to kind of have a sense. So I can say I've definitely passed Washington, who had like 1,000 books that in his lifetime that he had read or whatever. So I've definitely gone way over that. God only knows when. So I don't even bother keeping that list anymore. Um, but marketing is definitely something. Before you even launch your product, you need to know everything about your product, everything about yourself, everything about your audience, everything that you can do to market that product in the best way possible. This is crucial,
Hmm.
especially if you are a solopreneur like myself, where you're basically your own bank and you're financing everything yourself. You don't have any backup plans or, as I mentioned earlier, angel investors or anything like that. You're just doing
Right.
everything yourself because every dollar counts, right? Um, and so the point is that those are aside from your product itself and you testing your product and whatnot, you have to know how to market it. Your marketing division, if you have people working for you, or if you're the only person who is the marketing division, it needs to be 100% on point. You have to know everything there is anything that you can know about what you're doing and what people want. And that's the next thing I will mention is, a lot of times when you're creating a product or a service, uh, people tend to focus in on, oh, I love to do this, I love to write a biography, so I'm just going to write a biography. Well, maybe the audience you're reaching is not interested in whether you can write a biography, right? Maybe
Right.
they don't want to read biographies. So if you're still in love with biography, maybe what you can do is you can offer a service to them where you can read their biographies as a copy editor and help them that way, or maybe you can focus in on exactly what it is that they want. What are they seeking? You always have to be um, aware of what your audience wants, and then
Right.
create product around that, because you may be the best thing in town, but it's economics, right? Supply and demand. You could have all the wonderful products in the world, but if there's no demand for it's just going to sit in the warehouse collecting dust. So that's the other thing that you need to be aware of when it comes to the audience. Now, I'm going to say something that may not be traditionally accepted, right? You've
All right.
probably heard this all the time. So I'll give you my take on it.
Okay.
So while I was studying marketing and all this and learning all this ins and outs, and I will say even now, I'm not like I don't know everything about everything, right? I'm always learning. That's why I said I'm a lifelong learner. But
Right.
when it comes to the target audience, because you probably have heard this all the time. Oh, make sure niche down, know your niche, know who your target audience is, create those
Right.
avatars.
Yes. Yes.
And I did all of that stuff. And Gabriel, it still drives me insane. It
Mm-hmm.
still drives me. And maybe it's because of who I am and what I do. For example, if I was someone who was just doing one thing, right? Like if I was just an artist, that is all I did. I just made paintings. Then niching down makes sense to me, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm going to look for people who love historical portraits. Okay. Because obviously that's what I'm creating. So I need to find that market for myself. But I'm not that,
Right.
I'm multiple things. And I'm going to tell you another thing. There was a time, I think I even wrote about this. I used to get so hurt because I've had people who say to me, well, what exactly are you? Are you an artist? Are you a writer? Are you this? Are you what? You like do all these different things. And then you would have those, traditional marketers and geniuses and gurus, which with all respect to them, certain things may have worked at a certain point in life, right? But we're moving in a different direction. So
Right.
what I want to say is that for a person like me, that if you're one thing, one product, one service person, that may still be very well the case, right? That may still be the way that you go, where you find your target audience and you just stick to it. But for a person like me, who's got so many different things going on, right? I mean, I'm doing handmade stuff. I'm writing. I'm doing art. I've got another business going with, it's like now I'm talking about personal growth and stuff. See, so for me to sit here and just be stuck with the people, chasing after people who only love my art, that's not really benefiting me as a whole person, right?
Mm.
Benefiting me as one aspect of who I am. So I struggled with this a little bit too, because even last year, I think I had like separated my website. I'd put my Trehan's Treasure website, which is all art and handmade stuff, and then I'd started Creative Scrivener, which was all my writings and stuff. And
Right.
it was just a lot. It was a ton of work. And then I just sat there and I thought, why am I doing this? Because the fact is, I'm both of these things, right? I work in both of these fields, and so I decided to bring it back together. I may still have people who don't agree with my method, but it works for me because the way I look at it, and I was mentioning this earlier, I've written about this. It's like, no one ever sat there and questioned Da Vinci. Hey, why are you sitting there doing all this art, and why are you doing the writing, and no one ever, we celebrate those people, the Renaissance masters, as these great men, uh, we celebrate Benjamin Franklin, a diplomat, a writer, this, that. I mean, so why not me? Why should I limit myself to
Mm.
just one thing when I have so much more to give? I can definitely sit with somebody and, I could take your book and do the copy editing work for you just as much as I could go and create a portrait for a museum or a gallery. So
Right.
why should I limit my talents just because I need to fit into this whole, niche down, niche down. Otherwise, your brand. See, you have to understand this, Gabriel. Where we are today, we're in the creator economy, right? You are your brand. It's not your product or your service. You are your brand. Gabriel is the brand. So whether Gabriel is doing the interview on YouTube, or he's writing a book, or he is, doing whatever, you are the brand. So my niche is whoever is interested in whatever work I'm doing. So right now, if I'm talking about personal growth, and there are people who want to follow me for that, or they want to buy any services or products that I put out there related to that, I'm not going to cut off the people who love my art. I'm not going to cut off the people who are looking out for my next book. You know what I mean? That's all
Right.
part of it. So why should I just, like really, really put in this narrow focus where I could be subtracting other people who also want some of my work, but maybe another work that I'm doing or another project that I'm working on, they want to be a part of that. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I think that the best thing to do is if you are, and this took me a long time to get here. It was, and I used to ask the same questions, struggle. Oh my gosh, people won't recognize my brand. They'll be confused. They know, no, but if you're true to yourself, again, going back to the whole self-awareness, if you're true to yourself, you know what you're doing, you know what you stand for, you are the brand. And the people who want to follow you for one thing or the other will follow you. Not everybody's going to like everything I do, but maybe they like something that I do. That's okay with me. That's totally fine. I can appreciate that.
Definitely, 100%. And we're now reaching the end of this amazing interview. And this final question you've already answered like numerous times over. So I'm curious if there's anything else you could add to this. But here it is, Angelina. So, with everything you've learned and still learning about being an entrepreneur, which includes your art, being a historian, being a biographer, and finding your voice and showing the world who you are. What is your word of wisdom to fellow creators, fellow entrepreneurs watching and listening to this episode right now?
Well, Gabriel, I will borrow from the great Benjamin Franklin, who said, either do something worth writing or write something worth reading. And I think that's upside down. So he basically said either do something worth reading or do something worth writing. So what he meant by that was either do the writing so people would love and enjoy to read it, or do something monumental that somebody else is going to write about so that people can still read it. So either way, we know he loved, books, writing, this and that. So
Right.
that was this point. And so I will say the same thing, whatever your passion is, come into the self-awareness and knowing yourself. Stop waiting for people to validate you. Get into yourself, figure out who you are, what your passions are, what is it that you want to do in this life, the one and only life you get, and then go after it. Go after it and pursue it. Pursue it like the bloodhounds are after you. And don't let anybody's negativity or criticism or whatever dismissiveness stop you from achieving your goal. Just pursue it with the passion and you will get there. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have challenges, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But be strong, believe in yourself. You only need yourself to believe in yourself. If nobody else believes in you, it's okay. Believe in yourself and go for it.
Awesome. 100% agreed, and a perfect ending to this amazing interview. Thank you all so much for joining us for a late night episode here on the channel and the very last episode for the month of August. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest, my friend Angelina, for coming on the show, providing her insight, her knowledge, her expertise. Angelina, thank you so very, very much for coming back on the show. And before we end, where can people find and engage with you on social media? And do you have any upcoming projects you would like to share with the viewers?
Thank you so much, Gabriel. It is always a pleasure to come to your show, and I hope it'll continue to increase. You have some good stuff you put out, and also your newsletters too, by the way, which I'm
Thank
subscribed
you.
to as well. I think I was one of your first subscribers. Um, so if anybody wants to look me up, they can go to my website, which is www.trehans, that's TREHANS, treasures.com. And I'm on YouTube. I have a channel on there. I also am on LinkedIn, as you mentioned before. So
Mm-hmm.
they can look me up there. I'm not on social media all the time because most of the time I'm busy working. And I realize that's also part of work. But they can definitely go to my website and find me and contact me if they have any questions or anything. Right now, I'm focusing on personal growth because that's become a big part of my life, and I really want to help people who are struggling, or like I said before, who may not even be aware of what's happening, or so if anybody has any needs or help or questions or whatever, again, they can reach me through my website. I'd be happy to help. I'm there. I'm easily reachable that way. That's probably the best way. And again, Gabriel, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come and talk to you and your audience. As always, it's a pleasure. I hope we can do this again soon. We should be celebrating our 1 year anniversary, right?
Definitely, definitely. I will link all those down below in the description of this video, as well as tag Angelina's first appearance on the channel right here below. This will be the video of me and Angelina talking about Lincoln in the season 1 of the Historians Lounge. And as a final send-off before the official end of this video, I want to make one final announcement. There are only a few days left to get this custom print cover of Michael, the Last Angel of Earth. All you have to do is either go to my Instagram or go to my YouTube or any of my past videos, click on the Michael pre-order link, which will take you to Barnes & Noble, and all you have to do is pre-order yourself a copy, message me with proof of receipt, as well as an email so I can send you this amazing custom print comic inspired cover of Michael, Last Angel of Earth. As I said, there are only a few days left to get these until it goes on sale next Monday. I will link that down below in the description of this video. Well, everybody, we've reached the end for the month of August. Thank you all so very much for your love and support. Again, a huge thank you to Angelina for coming back on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what was your favorite part of the interview. And as a bonus, what was your favorite episode for the month of August? Until then, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out, wishing you all a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world.